Hello, everyone. Welcome. So today it's kind of weird because whenever whenever I set forth into a new season, I plan everything out, right? I know exactly what I'm going to talk about for which episode. And what is really funny is this one has been tumultuous. This topic has been really, really tumultuous. And I think it's because I've covered it before. And I'm feeling like if I do it again for whatever reason, I don't know. Like, I'm just like, oh God, am I doing a disservice by doing it again? Am I firm enough in this practice where I can really speak about it? So I've been having a lot of resistance and a lot of fear and a lot of like doubt around it. And I don't know if that's because like I'm just not supposed to talk about it. Like, I don't know if the timing is not lining up or what. Um, so I decided to, rather than to like just pretend like that I'm talking about this topic and yeah, like I feel completely confident in talking about this topic. Um, I don't. I'm not gonna fake it whatsoever. I This is not an orgasm, and I am not in 1980. Um, oh my god. You guys, I mean, come on. It's Aries season while I'm recording this. The new moon in Aries is tomorrow. I mean, what do you want from me? So, yeah, the topic that I'm kind of venturing into today is manifestation, but it's not manifestation. Well, some people would argue that it's a different way to manifest. Um, but I don't really like the idea of calling it manifestation because manifestation to me is purposeful. Like, and you know what you're getting. You know, it's all rooted in intention. It's like, hey, like this is something that I want to acquire, or this is something that I want to do, or that I feel that I need in my life. So I'm going to set the intention, and then the manifestation is going to come to fruition. And so that's what I'm talking about today, but I'm talking about the opposite of it, which to me is more or less fully like really learning that the idea of needing or wanting in this life is futile and how the universe does not really support either one. You know, the universe really doesn't support the act of getting, which I'll get to. And how we can kind of move forward with this information and how what that looks like in terms of living this life, you know, because I think for so long everybody has focused on like creating your own reality and met the law of attraction and bringing things into your life, and then this whole idea that yes, it's, you know, back to what I said in the manifestation episode of like the idea of the 7-layer cake. You know, it's like you got to have gratitude, you got to be willing to let go, and all of those things. And while those all apply, that is not necessarily what I'm talking about today. So let's kind of dive in, shall we? I'm just going to share with you my experience. So basically, I started kind of stumbling into this idea about a year ago when the world basically came to a stop, right? It was roughly April of 2020. And everything that I had kind of planned to do basically vanished before my eyes, which I'm sure all of you to some extent can completely relate to that. So there I was. And what was interesting is also at the same time, I realized that I was running away from myself a lot during that. I think all of us were, right? When you're locked down, when you're told that you have to do something, there's kind of like this resistance that you go into. And I was really wanting to run away because I was not only facing disappointment around what I had wanted to manifest last year, but also because you know, obviously I have my opinions and my beliefs around everything that is happening in the world right now. So there was that was coming up as you know, as resistance. But then there was also just this idea of like, okay, so if I'm not doing, you know, if I'm not able to do, then what the hell, like I literally felt like I almost like lacked value, or that I lacked like because I lacked purpose, I lacked value, like I wasn't making a contribution. And so all of these feelings, which I know a lot of us experienced last year, came up. And I was really confronted with having to return back to the present moment, with understanding that, being present is extremely important. It's really our number one job. And obviously, I talked about that in a previous episode, which you can go listen to before you might want to listen to it before you listen to this one. But anyway, so, presence obviously became really important to me. And also, I started to kind of realize that by living in the present moment, the act of manifesting kind of became, how shall I say, it just became different. It became like a different texture because I think, those of us that are that consider ourselves spiritual or that really try to work from a place of intention, we typically, I don't really do this much anymore, but one of the things that I used to do is I used to literally set intentions around the new moon every month. And I used to really think about and I used to use that energy of the moon to bring that in. I used to be very into this. It was something that I really firmly believed in. And then what was interesting is the more that I recognized the importance of remaining present and honoring my flow, so to speak, and I'm not referring to my cycle, but my flow, the way that my energy moved, not only throughout my body, but the way that I expressed my energy in the world, the way, the more that I kind of saw that and witnessed that is something to be respected and to be loved on, to be revered, I started to kind of feel like that there was really no reason for me to, I don't want to say there was no reason for me. I don't want to say that there was no reason for me to be intentional. I want to say that there was no reason for me to be intentional around what it was that I was manifesting, because I started to realize that being in the present moment was the most important, I want to use, how do I want to say this? It was like the most important platform for me to manifest, if that makes sense. So, so with all of that, you kind of, it was kind of weird because I started recognizing, I'm like, okay, so literally, if me just being in the present moment means that I fully embrace the mystery of life, that I be more conscious in the way that I respond to what is happening in front of me, that I don't just kind of come from this reactionary place that is acting out childhood traumas and all of that. If I really take responsibility for who I am in every moment, in every experience that is presented to me, then is it really necessary for me to focus on needing and wanting so much? Something that has interestingly been kind of at the forefront of, just I want to say I've been just throwing this idea up over and over again. And it's interesting because I actually stumbled upon it while watching Trevor Hall perform The Mountain. It's an actual performance that's on YouTube. You can find it. I can't remember what it is, but if you look up The Mountain, and he tells the story about how he tells the story of the mountain, basically what the mountain is about. And he talks about, how you reach the final abode. And the final abode, basically he says, there is no want here. There is no need here. And so that phrase, there is no want here, there is no need here, has been just rolling around in my brain ever since I heard it. And, I remember the first time I heard it and I was like, wow. It's almost like a part of me kind of felt relieved. And then another part of me was like, but what the fuck does that even mean? And is that extremely esoteric? Is that extremely ideal? Is that extremely, so far out there that does that even exist? And, obviously he's talking about the final abode. So he's referring to heaven, but heaven is here. We know this. I think, okay, I want to say we know this, in our core, right? We know this in our soul, but but we know this. It's an inner knowing. It's an inner knowing that heaven, whether or not heaven is in the place, depending on where you are religiously speaking, yeah, heaven may be a place that you believe in, but then there's also a sense of you that has to believe that if it's somewhere out there, it's got to be somewhere within also, right? So, anyway, going back to that notion of like there is no want here, there is no need here. It's very interesting to me because what I've kind of discovered along my journey is that for me to want or for me to need, that's coming from a place of lack, right? That's ultimately like the minute I wake up in the morning, and please don't write me about please don't write me about food, okay? Like there are certain things, yes, that we need in order for our bodies to function, in order for us to live in this physical form. So please don't write me saying, "Kim, we need food and we need water." Like I'm not talking about like basic needs. I'm talking about more from a manifestation standpoint of like is this life enough for you? Is this life currently, presently, as it is before you, is it enough for you? And so many of us, we would right off the bat, just because we've been trained, we've been trained to say no. We've been trained to say, no, it's not enough. I need more. I want more. And so oftentimes when we get up in the morning, we have goals, we have dreams, we have ambitions. We want to move into a bigger house. We want children. We want a certain job. We want to have a certain amount of money. We want to be able to travel. These are all things, by the way, that like I'm not saying that, this is just literally my path, this is my journey, this is my experience that I'm speaking of. I've been guilty of all of these things. It's like if I want a new plant, I'm going to buy a new plant. Like these are not I don't want to I'm not cursing wanting or needing. What I am simply suggesting is that I'm actually not even suggesting it. I do feel like that this is factual. When we need or want, we are coming from a place of lack. We are in the belief that we do not have it. It is not in our possession, or that we cannot get it. That is the thought pattern. And all of that is simply not true, because if you trace every single thing, okay, so let's take for example, okay, I want you to think of something that you want. And then I want you to name 3 reasons why you want it. What is it that you're looking to gain from the experience or the thing or whatever? Okay, so when you have those 3 things in your head, I want you to go even further, and you can pause this if you need to write this down. But I want you to go even further and say what those 3 things that you're wanting from that experience, how will that experience make you feel? So we're basically going from having something to what it'll do for me, or what are the 3 things that I want from it, and then how those 3 things will make me feel. Okay, so write down 3 feelings, okay, that are associated with that thing that you want. Now, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is there any way that you cannot feel those feelings right now? And I guarantee that the answer is no. You have the full ability to feel those feelings right now. Whatever those feelings are. Okay, let's just take it for example, because you guys are probably like, I don't know, maybe I feel like some of you are like, what are you talking about? So take, for example, I had planned on going to Nepal in 2020. And the reason why I wanted to go to Nepal was because, one, I just want to go to that side of the world. That is something, like I was going to link some other places in it with it, like Sri Lanka and, Bali and all that. I wanted to always visit that side of the world. It's always intrigued me. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go. I also wanted to go because I was going, I was going to participate in a program called 7 Women. And what was beautiful about it is not only am I learning, but I'm also sharing my talents and what I know as well. Okay. And then the third reason why I wanted to go is because I know that space of the world is very connected to spirituality and believing in a higher power. And so I really wanted to, I wanted to experience that. I wanted to be in that place. But the feelings were like, I wanted to feel that sense of oneness, that sense of connectedness, right? to a place, to a space, to human beings. I also wanted to feel impactful. I wanted there to kind of be an energetic exchange, you know. And what else did I want to feel? I wanted to feel, I guess, more centered in my heart. I wanted to really express my heart, but also like I feel like I just wanted to be more heart centric, if that makes sense. I wanted to feel more heart centric. So when I look at those three feelings, connection or oneness, impactfulness, and heart centered, like more heart centric, I guess. When I look at those feelings, I don't need to go to Nepal to feel those feelings. I can feel them right now. I can feel them as I'm sitting here breathing. I can feel them as I'm talking to you, even though I have no idea what you look like. I can feel them sitting, on my rocking chair on my porch. I can feel them playing with my dogs. I don't need to go to Nepal to feel them. So my point is we unfortunately think that we are wanting to accomplish things or experience things when in fact, really the number one reason why we want to do anything is because we want to feel a certain way. And that's why, like, when people look at images, like, it makes you feel something, right? It makes you feel something. And so, I can look at a picture of like somebody at the Holly Festival, and I can sit there and say, wow, that looks so ecstatic and so fun and so like just joyous. But the truth of the matter is that may not be, that's a photograph. I'm wanting to feel that. Just by looking at that photograph, I'm feeling that way. That doesn't necessarily mean that if I go and if I do that thing that I will feel that way, right? My experience is not necessarily going to be that unless I were to do what? So this is where I say, unless I were to do what? So to me, the only way that you can really guarantee a positive experience in anything is to understand what the causal point of your entire experience is. And which, by the way, when I say your experience, I could mean sitting on, I could mean something as simple as sitting on the couch and staring into oblivion. Some people can straight up sit on the couch and stare into oblivion. It can be the most connected, impactful, heart-centric experience. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to understand that our heart is the causal point of our entire experience. That how we feel in our heart, how we perceive things, which is dependent on how we've moved things, how we've moved trauma throughout our body. It's dependent on whether or not we have processed our emotions. It is dependent upon whether or not we understand how to respond rather to react to situations from a more centered, realistic, like actual, like what's happening in front of you space. So if the heart is the causal point for all of our experience, then does it really matter what we end up doing or what we end up experiencing? It really doesn't. It doesn't matter like whatsoever. And the other thing that is really fucking amazing, that is really fucking liberating, is when you understand that your heart is the number one priority. That when you wake up, your heart is the number one thing that you need to tend to. So if you wake up with sadness, which a lot of people do, okay? There's just some of us, I'm one of them. There are some days where I just wake up and I just feel sad. Those of us that are deeply empathic or that can indirectly, unknowingly take on other people's energies, or even just people that tend to be more emotionally variant, we can have a tendency to just wake up and feel sad. But the thing is unfortunately, what we're taught in this society is that when we wake up and when we feel sad, we push that shit down. We move forward. We press on. We don't sit there and we don't cry. I mean, maybe you do. And if you are doing that, like, slow clap for you, because that's amazing. You're actually giving yourself space and time to honor your emotions and heal from that. Come out of that. Come out of that emotion. And also, I'm sure in that process that you might recognize that emotion is just emotion, energy in motion. That's it. It's not necessarily tied to your self-worth. It's not necessarily tied to anything that has happened. Sometimes it's just there. Unfortunately, it's when we put so much meaning behind our emotion and we tie it to all of these things, like this means that and that means this, and I'm feeling this way because you did this, when in fact really you're feeling that way because maybe somebody when you were young did that, and because you were a dependent at that time, it meant that your world got turned upside down. Or it meant that you had to grow up a lot faster than you did, or it meant that you had to take responsibility on way too soon. And so I think what's interesting is when we are able to become more present, and when we are able to actually honor what it is that we are feeling in the moment of when we are feeling it, we can learn to become more responsive to those emotions and not project those out onto the individuals around us and say, hey, you not loading the dishwasher that like some way just freaked me the fuck out because you're irritating, you're not listening to the way that I wanted the dishwasher loaded, rather than you understanding that you might have some control issues that are left over from you feeling very much out of control, or maybe a parent being out of control and you needing to compensate for that. So instead of you projecting your emotion or your dissatisfaction or your distrust onto another human being because they're not loading the dishwasher correctly, you can sit there and you can realize what the core of the problem is. And you can, if anything, which you don't even need to involve this person in this process, but you can quietly thank them for showing you that emotion, that energy in motion is still somewhere residual in your body. And you are then there to do your inner work and alchemize that. And so all of this, when all put together, allows us to move through this world without ever really wanting or needing something, because we understand that our heart is the causal point and that we all are already worthy of everything that we want to feel, and we have the ability to feel everything that we want to feel that are tied to these experiences that we're trying to manifest, right? We already can feel that way. We don't need to go out and get a thing, experience, a relationship, a job. We don't need to do that. And I know this is like crazy, because then you're like, well, what's the whole fucking purpose of being here? And I believe that it's a plethora, right? There's an abundance of why we're here. I believe that we're here to experience what it's like being human. I believe that this is part of the path. Learning all these things, understanding what is it that is important while we're here. And also playing. Yes, manifestation can be fun and it can be like playful, and you can absolutely play with the energy. I want to encourage that, because I believe that that is part of this process of understanding that if getting were truly, was it Michael Brown? I think it's Michael Brown that says, if getting was the point of being here, then why do we come in with nothing and leave with nothing? Then there would be like a suitcase rack on the hearse, right? Like, if we were actually here to get stuff, then why do we come in with nothing and leave with nothing? I don't think that that's what's important. I think that what is important is to learn everything that I feel that I've been shown or that I've learned in some ways, and not saying that I don't have a ton more learning to do, but I think that this is all just here for us. this place is truly a remarkable place where we get to see nature and we can model after nature. Nature does not believe, like, nature's intelligence is so universal. It is from source. And I think that we place so much importance on the brain. We think that the brain, oh, if I can think it, I can make it happen. And we now know that that's not even true. You know, the whole like positive thinking doesn't go half as far as you just feeling what your heart is telling you. And if your heart is feeling down right now, then take that. Take that and spin that into the most beautiful gold that you can find. You can alchemize that. Or not. Just know that your experience is obviously just going to reflect where your heart's at. So, you know, the whole idea of like positive thinking and, well, if I think that I'm deserving and if I think that I'm, I'm going to draw this experience into me, if I can imagine myself being there, not saying that that isn't maybe a little bit of the percentage of what really makes things come in, energetically speaking, but really it's the heart. Everything is caused by your emotion, by the heart, by how open it is, by how closed it is. How open are you? Can you fully receive everything that crosses your path without, you might have a little bit of trepidation. You might have a little bit of fear. But if you don't behave in that, if you can transcend past that, if you can say, no, I'm going to blow my heart wide the fuck open. Or if you say to God or source or whoever it is that you believe in, if you just are like, you know what? I'm scared as fucking shit right now, but I want this. Or not I want this. It's not that you want the experience. It's that you know it to be a part of you. You know it to be your truth because it is not separate from you. There is nothing out in the world that is separate. It is all within. Every single experience that you are having, and whether or not that is considered good or bad, is determined by your heart. So whether you see a homeless man on the street and you have compassion for him, or whether you have judgment for him, is dependent upon what is going on in your heart. So if we know all this, if we know that there's no support for needing or wanting, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I just kind of feel like if optimal is love, right? If we know optimal to be love, and if we know least optimal to be fear, then when you're working from a place of lack and you're like, I want to make $75,000 a year because then I will feel validated with the work that I am doing. If you're wanting that, then you're kind of you're creating resistance. The minute that you want or that you need something, you are creating resistance because the universe is like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, no shit. No shit, you're worth that. Actually, you're worth way more than that. But now what you've done, unfortunately, is you've created this filter. So instead of you residing in that place of being fully, knowingly abundant, you said, well, I'm only abundant if I received $75,000 a year? And so you're closing your funnel of receiving way down. And so my preference, this is strictly my preference and my experience, is that I would rather tend to my heart every morning, get it to the most optimal state. And yeah, throughout the day, you're literally going to have, you're just like just like the freaking stock market. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. So you're literally just going to have, it's going to be a roller coaster. And that's okay. Your job is just to ride that roller coaster consciously. But if you keep tending and you keep opening and you keep expanding, and if you keep just on, you have to honor those feelings. I'm not asking you to suppress. This isn't like, oh, but return yourself back to the optimal state. No, this is know that your heart is the causal point for your entire experience and take responsibility for that. That's it. Take ownership of that. Take claim over that. Say, you know what? Like, I mean, no joke. Like, if you wake up and your heart is heavy and you're fucking sad, then just maybe dedicate that day or that month or that year to fucking being sad. Energy has to move eventually. It is only when we can give it what it deserves, give it the time, the attention that it deserves, the honor, because it's saying something to you. Everything is a message, right? Illness within the body, disease within the body. That goes the same for emotions. It's all a messenger. So honor that, but understand that, hey, if I return myself to that optimal state, and if I recognize that, need and want comes from a place of fear, and fear is not the optimal state. Fear is not the congratulatory, rewarding energy for the universe. It's just not. The universe congratulates and rewards love, expansion, receptivity, unity. That's what the universe rewards, because the universe is one. It is one with you. And so when you kind of draw up all these conditions, you indirectly are realizing that you are shutting yourself off. You're saying, I am separate from the universe. Everything that is out there is external to me. And so unfortunately, it really cramps our manifestations or our unmanifestations. And so then like I feel the question coming up and you're like, okay, so what does that look like, Kim? Like, what does that mean? Well, that means in a way that, and there are plenty of quote unquote spiritual teachers or manifestation teachers that say this. That means that you need one of the things to manifesting is you got to let go. You got to be willing to let go. You can want something, but can you let it go? So the thing is whether or not you choose that, that path or that route in terms of manifestation, it's like, okay, I want something, but I'm going to let it go. I have complete detachment to it. The problem is that so often when that happens, there is a disconnect, because I believe that for some of us, it's very easy for us to be emotionally detached to things that we don't feel a certain need for, right? Like for me to say that I need to make $100,000 and for a mother of four to say that she needs to make $100,000, sure, I can let that shit go, but can she? No, because she needs that way more, or at least that's how it appears. It appears that she needs that way more than I do. And so while it may be easy for me to emotionally detach from wanting things or wanting certain things, it's not the same all across the board for everybody. And it's also not the same across the board depending on what we're desiring. For me, I more strongly desire experiences and travel, but for another person, so I could sit there in the same breath and say, I want to go here, but it's going to be harder for me to emotionally detach from that than saying, I want to make this much money this year. The money, I'm more like, whatever, I could care less. the experience of traveling and going someplace and taking that in, this is just dependent on where our values lie. And so naturally, we all have different things in which it's easier for us to emotionally detach from. But the problem is that it's a very difficult place to get to when you're talking about connecting with desire. Because unfortunately, the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks, and do not think that I'm throwing shade. I literally have practiced these things. My point is that you're literally like turning on the switch of desire, and it's, and even Abraham Hicks says, you have to feel it. What we're trying to do is get you to a state where you don't feel that you actually need those things, where you don't feel that you actually want those things. There's a reason for that. But unfortunately, people get really confused because they're like, well, wait, my desire is supposed to be so strong, but if my desire is strong, you're telling me that that's creating a roadblock. And so what I'm proposing is adopting this idea that if you just fall back and if you concentrate on your heart, because you understand that that is the causal point for your entire experience, then there's really no need or want to create, there's really no thought process around needing or wanting anything, because you are more enamored, or you learn to value more this beautiful idea of, I am going to be like, I'm going to honor what it is that I'm feeling, and I'm going to start there. That's the most important thing. And just by you doing that and saying, creating my inner sanctuary, creating my peace within myself, creating understanding where I need to heal, understanding my traumas, my wounding and all of that, understanding that and getting really clear on all of that just allows my heart to live more in harmony with everything else that is. Because basically what happens, and I know that I'm going on a little side tangent here, is that when you understand your wounding and you understand your trauma, you truly understand that that is simply not really even a part of you. Those are just experiences. Everything that you see reflected out into the world, all of that beauty, all of that resilience, all of that perfect adaptability, that is you, not the experiences that you've had. So I guess, when you can get down to that, when you can get down to understanding and really purifying your heart every day, making the commitment and making that the priority, you move more into the state of, I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I don't have a need to set goals, because I honor and value the mystery of life. I honor and value the unknown. I honor and value everything else that is here. I don't need to put a filter on it. I don't need to put a funnel on it. I don't want to cut the universe off at its knees. I don't want to sit there and open my heart, launch it into the atmosphere, and say, I'm here and I'm open and I'm fully receptive and I'm wanting, right? I'm wanting whatever you can give me. But the thing is it's like what happens so often is when we're expansive and we're just there and we're just heart-centric and we're heart-forward, is we're like, but I want it this way. And the universe literally was like standing there and it was just about to hand you the most beautiful fucking thing on a silver platter. And you just said, but I want it this way. And you just took a machete and you went whack and chopped it right at the knees. And so then the universe turns around with its head down, and it's like, damn it, I failed. I got to go back to the drawing board. They want me to bring something else. And not that that doesn't happen. It happens all the fucking time. But the truth of the matter is it takes time. And unfortunately, patience is not something that many of us have really learned. You can absolutely have exactly what you want. There's that saying, right? You can have exactly what you want. But how much time do you have? How much time are you willing to give it? And I mean, we could talk about time and it not being linear and it not being, and I mean, I believe that the biggest, honestly, one of the other biggest blocks that people have is they believe that something, that they believe that manifesting something is going to take time. Nothing takes time. Close that gap. Close that belief system. That belief system is done. It's over. You collapse the time. You collapse the time by understanding that your heart is the causal point of your entire experience. And that you don't need anything outside of you to bring you into a place of peace and coexistence. It's a beautiful thing working from this place. I feel that while it was extremely scary and I kind of felt like I went through a little bit of an identity crisis. Thank you to my friends that were super supportive and helped me, stay on path. The thing is it's like, it's extremely fucking liberating. It's extremely liberating to not have to be always on top of my intentions of what I want to manifest and bring in, and just to let God do it all. Let source do it all. I trust that I will get exactly what it is that I quote unquote need to excel here. I do not need to strive for it. I do not need to push for it. I do not need to force. I don't have to intend. I intend by making sure that my heart is online and it is open. And for the most part, it is as healed as it possibly can be. That is how I intend. That is how we can move through this life. There are so many people that yearn for that feeling of connectedness, that feeling of oneness, that feeling of knowing God. But God is unknown. It is infinite. And unfortunately, when we dream and when we set goals and when we intentionally manifest, we manifest from the brain. We can only manifest from what the brain can comprehend, or from what the brain can visualize, or from what the brain can think of. And what we don't understand is when we do that, we are shutting ourselves off from source, because source, again, is infinite and unknown. Our brain cannot comprehend infinite. So we are relying on the wrong space of our body to bring in things that are valuable to us. And when I say things that are valuable to us, I just mean experiences that are going to naturally add value without us specifically needing them or wanting them. It is literally letting go of the steering wheel and allowing everything else that you are connected to give you exactly what you came here to receive. It is up to you to do the job to make sure that you are as open and as receptive as possible. And we do that by making sure that our heart is clean. That's it. Just that. Oh, man. big, right? Oh, well, I think that's all that I have to say, you guys. Damn. I think I blacked out during that one. Sometimes I really do feel like I black out during these. It's just, yeah, I just channel whatever is on my heart, and that's it. But I thank you. I thank you so much for coming along on this beautiful ride with me. I feel truly blessed just to be able to express myself and to be able to talk about these things that are just so um, amazing. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you have anything that you would like me to discuss in the future, or any questions even that you have for me, you can drop me a line at connectedpodcast.us@gmail.com. I will, yeah, I'll tend to whatever, I'll tend and I'll respond to whatever you present me with. But anyway, thanks again, you guys, for listening, and stay well.